Hello there, Eagles fans. Welcome back to our Eagles Therapy Podcast. I'm Basil.
And I'm Baz.
We're recording Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Happy Star Wars Day coming up. May the 4th be with you. I have to say that as always. And happy draft. Draft is over.
Yes.
We are a little bit late coming out our draft recap episode. My dad was on a trip, you guys know. So I did some small little mini ones to check out kind of instant reactions to our first two picks. And today we'll be going over the entire draft and the Eagles draft and all the picks they got. Dad, how you feeling today?
Well, it's funny. Just like I expected it to happen, you got all these, especially if you're like me, I do a lot of traveling and driving, so I can listen to 1,000 podcasts about drafts. It didn't really fall the way they say it would. That's why I don't even think about making a mock, because it doesn't make any sense. I also think it's funny when they grade a draft. Like, I was watching a show that they graded the NFC East, all the drafts. The Giants got an A+, and the Cowboys got an A, and then and I'm like, guys, it doesn't matter what. Just half these guys aren't going to make it in the league. What you got to do is be in a situation like us where you draft what you need. Yeah. They're just grabbing an offensive lineman, and they're getting a guy here and there. Like, good for you. Yeah, well, the Giants got Jackson Dart, right? Yeah. 25th, and I don't know what
notorious Eagles fan.
What they traded. Yeah, what they traded to get him, I don't know, but. We'll see. You can't grade a draft. Grade a draft until 3 or 4 seasons later.
Sometimes it's even longer than that. I mean, because imagine, if you graded the draft that Brandon Graham was in, even 10 years even 5 years after he was drafted. So he was drafted in 10. Yes. If you graded it in 15, you would still kind of be like, yeah, he's a hit and miss. But then if you did it only 2 years later, you go, oh, it's the biggest hit they've ever had.
I agree.
So it is fun.
So yeah, I don't really get into it, but I do go and I watch a lot of the highlights of what the players we drafted.
Oh, of course.
And you read about them and you see, why he fell to that position, whatever. But I think it's a good season. Yeah, good draft.
Cool. Well, let's then. One other thing I want to say about the draft grades that I agree with you on. I always hate looking at draft grades because there's never anything less than like a C. Because it's like, well, yeah, because they're drafting what they need, so of course it's a good draft. Right. But all these, there's 32 guys drafted in the first round. 14 are good. 3 are going to be all time.
Right.
7 are going to be good.
Right.
2 are going to to be great. And then 12 of them, 15 of them are going to never be good.
It's funny because I watched a few shows that were like, the best player taken in every draft since 2000, the worst player taken in every draft since 2000. Yeah. And then they went through like that. What year was Lane drafted?
13.
Well, they went through that draft. That was like one of the worst drafts ever.
When you walked away with
and then you're like, well, this guy's a Hall of Famer, but you got the first 3 after that.
Sandwiched between a group of really bad picks.
Yes, it's just funny to I don't know, if you're kind of a off-season NFL geek, that's what you watch, and that's what I did, especially when the draft comes around. I'm glad it's over.
This is the victim of not being a fan of any other sports. So when you're a fan of just football, you're obsessed with the draft, and then you go, what, that grade, this guy, what? Yeah. If you're a fan of if you're watching the NBA playoffs, you're like, okay, the draft's cool. But
unfortunately, if you're watching baseball, good for you.
And you're little.
But anyway, this is a football podcast, so that's what we like to talk about. That's right. Yeah, there's always something. Now gets the downtime, really. May and June, they practice, but
OTAs, all that stuff. But okay, well, let's get into it. Player by player, the Eagles drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. So the Super Bowl champions started off the night trading up from the 32nd pick to the 31st pick to draft Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. Dad, I kind of gave my thoughts on this. Give me a little bit of what you're thinking about this pick.
It's funny, we were kind of watching with a bunch of Eagles fans, and as we got down to that point, we're like, well, I don't know who we're going to take now.
Yeah.
This guy's gone. We wanted that guy. I had said we were going to get
Walter
Nolan.
He went 15.
Yeah,
he was insane.
He had no chance, and you knew how he wasn't going to mess around with that.
No.
But when it was getting towards, Rico was yelling, that's who he wanted, and I thought, I'll take him. Supposedly the best linebacker or second best linebacker in the draft. Had an injury. That's the problem. That's why they draft. That's why they drop so much sometimes. So, but that's a long ways away. So
yeah. Now, I think this is a great pick. Eagles obviously have a pretty good track record with both Alabama and Georgia. Obviously, talking about Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson. I mean, all Alabama guys. So, pretty good track record for Alabama and Georgia players coming to this team. So, you're pretty happy about that.
Definitely. I love the fact, even in this draft this year, we did 10 picks. I think 4 or 5 of them were for top schools.
Yes.
Texas, Alabama, and Georgia.
Yes.
Love it.
Let's get into the next one. Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas. What was your thoughts on this one?
I think he's going to be a starter right away. If not right away, in the first 2-3 weeks, he's going to be in there. I mean, we're going to see how Sidney Brown, if he pushes him, but I think he's going to be a starter right away. 5'11", he's kind of light, 186, so that's one of the problems is he's not a 210 guy, but he's obviously going to have some speed. He's got some length from what I've read. He's got some range, so that's what you want. Yeah. We needed a safety. We needed a defensive end, which also is something that Campbell can do. Is he's kind of a rush to quarterback type.
Does it all.
And he can cover tight ends, which is really, I mean, when you look at our defense, you say, what do we need? They were like 3 of the things we really would like to have, and we got it all with the one guy. So As long as he's ready to roll, we're in good shape. And as far as the safety goes, we needed a safety. We got a safety, probably the second or third best safety in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's always
whatever,
analytical.
3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever.
He played for Texas, so he went deep in the playoffs this year. So
he had that pick six, the interception to end the game against ASU.
Right.
When we were watching downstairs cheering for ASU,
tough.
He had the walk-off interception. So
he's a player. Just like Jihad. So
I have seen him oftentimes compared to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, similar height. I think both 5'11". You said
yes, 5'11", 186 for him.
So Gardner-Johnson has some weight on him. He's 210, so a little bit of a difference there. But I do think Makuba will be looking to put on some weight. So I don't think it's. I don't think it's out of the I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he puts on some more weight before the season.
It's funny because you had said, we really wanted to give Sidney Jones a shot, Kelly Ringo a shot, these guys, but this guy is a true safety.
Ringo's a corner
from a big college. No, that's okay, but it's from a big college, and that's what you like. Even if he's not the starter, he's get him ready to get right in there. If somebody goes down, he's obviously going to play special teams. That's a perfect draft pick for what we needed.
Next pick, the Eagles kind of surprised me here. Didn't take a pick in the 3rd round. They traded back, and they ended up going into the 4th round and grabbing Ty Robinson with the 111th overall pick, defensive tackle out of Nebraska. Bit of an older player. I think he's 23 right now. I think.
That's another thing. I kept hearing older players. Brandon Wheaton, when he was 28, that's an older player.
True.
I mean, you can still remember some of these guys are coming off of that COVID thing where they sat a year and pushed like that. So he's going to be 24, right?
Yeah, he's 23. He's going to be 24 tomorrow.
Okay, so he's 24 years old. So, I mean, but 6 years, 7 years is all we need out of this guy, right? That's all you're going to get anyway. I mean, we've seen players that we had who were 20, like Sweaty, when he came out, and there was a few other guys I remember that were super young, but that doesn't always translate either. So,
it's true.
This guy's played 5 years of college football, right? So he's started, I don't know how many games. So, I mean, he's been around for a while. So, I mean, that's a good thing, too. Now, the only problem around him was the fact that he kind of only shined this past season from what I've read stuff like that. 6'5", 288, exactly what you want for a Milton Williams guy and a guy playing in the position that Davis plays in, because they're both huge, and you're going to wear those linemen down. You want the fast guys off the edge, but if he can push up the middle. And I saw some of his plays in college, and he looks like he's going to be a heck of a player. And maybe, early in the season, he's going to get some reps. He's not going to be watching. He's going to be playing.
Yeah. No, I like the pick a lot. I think it's great for the value, the 4th round. 5 years, but like you said, 23 is not – I know I say, like, it was a little bit of an older player.
Right.
23, 24, I mean, you start to get worried if they're 26, 27. Yes, that's when you're a little bit more scared.
As our friend Rube would say, fireman Danny.
7 sacks last year for Nebraska, 37 total tackles, 4 passes deflected. I like that. He gets his hands up. 6 passes deflected the year before that. So he gets a lot of hands up. I like that, and I think it's good to have a guy like you said. Complimentary to, the Mora Ojomo, the
Yes.
Jalen Carter, obviously, but anybody could compliment him. He's just so good.
Jomo's a little more speedier, I think, and a little less weight, but you want that guy to be able to push the middle of the pack. That's how they won a Super Bowl. The two guys pushed the middle of the pack. Yeah. Quarterback had nowhere to go because they were coming off the edge. That's what you want. One of the stats I got about him was Robinson's 15 tackles for loss in 2024 was the most by a Nebraska player since Ndamukong Suh in 2009.
Nice.
So, if he can stuff the middle and get us 5 sacks, that would be incredible.
Yeah. Next player going over to, I believe this was in the 5th round. Yeah. Going back to the 5th round, Mac McWilliams, cornerback out of UCF. I think this is this was kind of if you look at the winners and losers of a draft as far as players go.
Right.
This was definitely a win for Keely Ringo. This seemed to kind of show that, even with Will Johnson on the board, we took a linebacker. It was good for probably Keely Ringo to see, okay, they trust me to be that starting corner opposite Quignon and Cooper, wherever they are at in the slot and outside and everything. I think this was a big thing for Keely Ringo. Obviously, still important to get talent. Mac McWilliams, you got to get depth and everything like that. I think that's a great depth pick. What do you got to say about Mac?
Well, he's 5'10", 190, so another light corner. Not light.
Reminds me of Avonte Maddox. I know Avonte Maddox earlier in his career with us was playing safety, really out of necessity.
Right.
That was the year we were super injured on the safety in the back end. So he does remind me of that size. He was 5'9", 184.
Yeah,
Avonte Maddox. Yeah. So, it reminds me of that kind of size. A little bit taller, but still, that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Well, he's got the speed. This is a guy that you may be throwing on the practice squad. The guy that might be a developmental guy. Now, I don't know his age, so can't just throw that. But he did run a 4.41, so he's got some speed. And we did kind of pull in a bunch of free agents for the cornerback position. So they push each other, and hopefully. They can do it. He's not a very big program, Central Florida. They've had their runs in the last couple of years, so it's not like he's stiff. But it's just kind of funny how again it was another need pick, and it was also that was the 4 out of 5 top picks we got defensive players. So we just kind of continued that run this year, and that's really where we needed to be. From looking at our roster.
Yep. Next one out of Georgia. You knew this was coming at some point. Out of Georgia, the Eagles with the 161st pick take Smile Mondon Jr., a linebacker from Georgia. Love to see it. Obviously we are kind of used to taking Georgia players in the first round, but you're kind of happy to get them whenever.
I think this was a 3-year starter, so he's played with some of our guys that are out there right now.
Yeah,
maybe on the tail end of their years.
But,
3-year starter. He missed a few games last year. 6'2", 224, so he's not a huge backer, but again. You want that guy that's played in the postseason in college several times. Probably has a ring or two for being a champion. I'm not sure exactly.
He probably was a freshman or something like that.
That's again. We did a position that we may need that linebacker because we don't know if Trott's going to be able to fill in and then Kobe's down for a while. So I think it was a great pick too. And again, 5 out of 5 of the first guys we got were all defensive players, which is exactly what we needed.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think, again, the good value of it. ESPN had it rated as, I can't remember, 86th. Or no, they're 87th. The 87th best pick of the draft. Because he was rated as the 79th best player by ESPN in the draft. And so
you figure 32 teams, that means one of the top 3 players for each 32 teams. So that's not too bad. I think you did say that they said the first 4 picks were all within the top 87 overall.
Correct. Yeah, we had 4 picks in the top 100 best picks of the draft as far as steals, fits, stuff like that. We had 4 picks in the top 87. Jahad Campbell, number 4. 37 was Ty Robinson. Number 61 was Andrew Makuba, and then 86.
It's funny how
87.
Now I thought it was weird that we traded down in the 3rd. It kind of made me go, "What are we doing?" Because I hang that whole draft and I'm watching it, and then all of a sudden it changed. I think to the Jets, and I went, "Well, what are you doing?" But they know better than I do.
Yeah. On the for Mondon, sorry, before we move on,
Smile. I think they keep saying Smile, even though it doesn't look like that.
For Smile Mondon Jr. Other thing about him, at the combine, I know we don't always take combine into effect, but he was considered the he was first in the athleticism score. So it was considered to be kind of the most athletic linebacker in the draft. Wow. So pretty cool, considering that the draft also had Jahad Campbell in it.
Right. Yeah, I heard some of the podcasts talking about how the Eagles really are high on that athletic score.
Oh, yeah.
You get like 3 different scores and they mash them together. Correct. So, athletic is what you want in a guy that you're picking in the 5th round.
Definitely. Next one's going to be Drew Kendall, center out of Boston College. Good pick, necessary pick. Played center in college at Boston College, but before he played center, I believe he was playing guard. He was being trained as a guard, so it looks like he can kind of play, anything on the inside. He played guard and center in high school, so you kind of think that he can play that inside position. Father was a former NFL player and played for Boston College as well. I believe he was a Pro Bowler. What was the name? Drew Kendall, Pete Kendall. Yeah, Pete Kendall. Cardinals, Seahawks, no Pro Bowls. I'm sorry, Jets and Redskins. So son Drew Kendall coming to the Eagles, and I think he can play both spots on the inside. So maybe extra competition for that right guard position.
We're still looking. I mean, we know we have some with 2 or 3 or 4 guys lined up for that position. So hopefully he can, if not start, push somebody. Yep. And the fact that you got that dad was in the NFL, the little pedigree there, you like to have that too, because it means he's, I don't want to say he's been pushed too hard by his pops, but, I'm sure his dad knew early on that he is going to have the size and if he's got the smarts and the desire to play, that's the other thing that you never know about, but hopefully he's good to go.
Yeah, I like the size of him too, 6'4", 308. And I think it's also important that not only, to compete for that right guard position, but also we need a backup center. This has worked. Cam Jurgens a great player, but he has dealt with some injuries in his career. His first year starting at guard, missed like 3 or 4 games. Last year he was great, not injured until the NFC Championship game. And in that game we had to put Landon Dickerson in, and then he got hurt. So you're kind of like, well, we really, I don't think Stout likes to weaken 2 positions by moving one guy to here, another guy there. No, I think you really do want a backup center.
It's funny because it worked out, and then I believe Street came in, right? Steen came in.
He played fine.
So he got some, he's got his feet experience in the Super Bowl. But you'd rather have, like you say, a coach doesn't want to move a guy because you got a Pro Bowl right guard. Why would you want to move him?
Pro Bowl center, Pro Bowl left guard. You don't want to lose the Pro Bowl center and then move the Pro Bowl left guard.
Yeah, especially that left side, which is so important. So, it's a good pick. Hopefully he can develop him. Again, we're going to put him in the Stout U and see what happens.
That's right. Let's get into the quarterback. I believe now we're in the 6th round, which Drew Kendall was the last pick of the 5th round. We made 3 picks in the 5th round. Also walked out of the 6th round with 3 picks. We actually walked out with 4. Kyle McCord, quarterback out of Syracuse. Dad, what do you think about this pick?
I thought it was weird. Again, you know how I feel about picking up quarterbacks in the draft, especially late. But, if you don't think that DTR, is that
yeah, Dorian Thompson.
If you don't think he's going to be the guy who we've seen, he's got some experience. But
to me, DTR is a player that, is the perfect player for a practice squad.
Right.
That's the thing. I mean, maybe he'll
go against a mobile quarterback. You throw him out there.
Correct.
He can play that position.
I think he's the perfect player to have on your practice squad. That way, if someone does get hurt, you can bring him along and you have a guy who's experienced and has played before. But to me, I just think as far as value, you're not going to, Tanner McKee can't be on the practice squad. You'd lose him. Right. McCord, he probably can't be on the practice squad. You'd lose him. Right. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I don't think anyone's going to be out there going, pick him up off the practice squad.
Knocking the door down. It's true.
So to me, it's I think he's the perfect player to have on the practice squad. And, hopefully, to me, the best case scenario with McCord is same situation as Tanner McKee.
I agree.
We took Tanner McKee in that 6th round. He's now become our for sure, no doubt backup. We got him a Super Bowl, and I think it's not off the board. If Tanner McKee and McCord have a couple good preseason games, I think it's not off the board. Tanner McKee, we might be looking for a trade spot for him for a team that gets a quarterback hurt in the season.
It's very possible. Especially if they both are similar in there. Wow, they're both good. I have confidence in them. It's funny. I've been pushing for Tanner for the last 2 years. I love the way he played when he came in last year. I thought he was amazing. I like the way it changes our offense from a You know, they don't know what's going to happen. The kid's got an
It's
arm.
true. He comes in and it's a whole different offense.
Seemed to be anyway. I mean, you know, it's funny, but he was just powdering when he came in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you like that. You like the fact that he's got some experience now. And, you know, I don't think it's the worst pick in the world. I think it's a good idea. They see the value there, so they decide, hey, I think we can develop him. And if not, you know, get a third round or a second round down the road if it happens.
Yeah. So obviously, let me ask you this question. This has just been kind of funny for me, just interesting to see and surprising. Jalen Hurts going into his 5th year as a starter, his 6th year in the NFL. You know, every year he's been with us, only 1 year did he have a backup quarterback who played like him. So, like Marcus Mariota, kind of similar to Hurts, can run, escapability. Yeah. It's just kind of funny that, 21 and 22, his backup was Gardner Minshew, who is nothing like Hurts.
Right.
23 is Mariota, and then last year is Pickett and McKee, nothing like Hurts. Yes. And then this year again, 2 next quarterbacks, nothing like Hurts. So, explain, tell me why don't we get a guy who's similar to Hurts? I just wonder.
First of all, I don't think there's many of them out there
that
can play as well as him. Where
that's for sure.
Hurts, obviously he's never going to get the accolades that he's supposed to get. The guy can throw the ball on a dime, but it's funny how he's a running quarterback. Well, he can be he's a good running quarterback. We know that, but he can definitely sit in the pocket. We watched it on the Super Bowl. We watched it in the NFC Championship game. The guy can throw the ball. And I don't think it's hard to find that type of player out there. I think because either you're going to get the guy that runs all the time and doesn't have the patience to sit in the pocket and throw the ball, like Hurts can do both. So I think that's why. I just think there's no really out there. Of course, he's a little bit shorter too, so I mean that just changes the way things are. But you like to have that guy who can come right in and play.
Yep. All right, let's finish off the draft. Last 3 picks. Miles Hinton, offensive tackle out of Michigan. Cameron Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas at 191 and 207. Tell me about these guys.
Well, I just got 6'6", 342, 6'5", 335. Both of them are huge. One of them's dad also played in the NFL. So I think they believe that Hinton can be a kind of a swing tackle, but he also played for Michigan, so he didn't play for a small team. He's also in a big team, which is nice. And then the Cameron Williams, I've seen his name on one of the lists I looked at, the second overall steal in the draft for offensive linemen. So Texas offensive tackle, so he's played in the big games. Obviously, he's played well. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten the big games. So, he's got a little bit of injuries, light injuries, but maybe that's why he dropped a little bit. But other than that, he's another one of those guys. You get him in stout, and you just work him in there, and hopefully you got yourself a swing tackle now.
Yeah,
we've been looking. We want that ever since Johnson left. We want to have that.
Yes,
Freddie Johnson.
Losing Fred Johnson was so huge for that swing.
It's funny how we, as casual fans, may not know who that is. But the fact that, he comes in during a few of the games through the season and played well.
Yes, he did. 100%. Yeah, I like both these picks. Cameron Williams was at one point, I think, projected to go in the 4th round. We walk out getting him in the 6th. And based off of Combine, he was the 10th overall tackle in the draft when you compare production and athleticism. Huge dude. I love both of these picks. I think there's great value in each. We always talk about if it's 6th-round pick doesn't work out, you don't really get upset. Yeah. And if it's a 6th-round pick and it does work out even a little bit, you're really happy with
it. And there was talk that if Cameron Williams went back stayed in college for another year, he'd be a 1st or 2nd-round pick. That was a kind of consensus between a lot of different people out here talking. So
yeah, I think the big thing they talk about with Cameron Williams is, he's got all the tools, but can he da-da-da-da-da-da, Right. And I think that's where you throw, here's Jeff Stoutland, Yeah. And then Miles Hinton, big dude as well, 6'7", both 6'6" and above. I mean, God, they're huge.
Yeah, they're getting bigger and bigger.
And I think that's a great, compete for the swing tackle. Maybe one's left, one's right. No backups. We don't know how it's going to look out, but it's still.
Now, again, I don't know the ages on these guys, but they also might be people that you say, okay, Lane Johnson, 3 more years. Maybe this is the guy that we're just going to stick on the practice squad, get him in shape, teach him all the things, let him work with Lane and Malata, and just learn the tricks of the trade and be ready to go in a couple of years. And then we don't have to get that number 1 overall tackle in 2 years because we know we got this guy.
Correct.
Of course, that depends on how long Stoutland hangs around. Hopefully, it's another 2 or 3.
Yeah, and to you, that's really to the fans. That's kind of best case scenario.
Yeah.
Best case scenario for the worst case scenario is nothing happens and it was a 6th-round pick.
Yes.
Best case scenario, Cameron Williams is the starting right tackle for the next 7 years.
That's why I say maybe with those guys, the age is a little more important. Say he's a 21-year-old guy. Okay, he getting good money, so I can sit for a year or two behind Lane and see what I got to do and get out there maybe in a couple games and get some of my feet wet and. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you hope for and what you kind of expect when you're one of the better teams in the league, you think, okay, well, say by the end of the season, first seed's locked up, second seed's locked up, last game of the season, both of you guys are going out there and, see what you got, And yeah, Cameron Williams, only 21 years old. Miles Hinton, 23, won't be 24 until January next year. So, 23
and fairly young. Yeah. They could sit for a year or two and learn the tricks of the trade. Of course, like you say, is that Hinton's dad played in the NFL as well, so he's probably been taught to have a little bit of patience.
I think his dad was the Pro Bowler I was talking about.
He played for 13 years, I think. He was a Colts.
Yes, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. Colts Ring of Honor. Great player.
That's some good pedigree right there.
And then the last pick we make with the 209th overall pick, Antoine Powell-Ryland, defensive end out of Virginia Tech. This is, I think, you talk about it first. Go ahead.
Well, the good thing is, the first thing you notice is he's got 16 sacks last season. So you kind of go, oh, okay, played for a small school, maybe played on the crappy school. No, played for Virginia Tech. And I went through some of his the team's opponents he played against. He played against Minnesota, Clemson, Boston College, Stanford, Virginia, and Syracuse. That was just some. He had 4 sacks against Boston College, and he had a sack against Clemson, and he also played against Stanford as well, which is where the quarterback we drafted from.
Yes,
McCord. So McCord. So I kind of looked him up. McCord kind of lit up the defense on that game, but he didn't play slouches. He wasn't playing the third Division 3A schools. He was playing some pretty good schools. Now he did play some smaller schools. He played Old Dominion, had 4 sacks against them. So, but still. 16 sacks is 16 sacks.
Production is production, yeah.
25 and a half over the last 2 years. So that's, this is a guy you're taking in round 6, late round 6. Not too bad.
I think it's spectacular value for a 6th-round pick. We needed a defensive end. Obviously, this doesn't throw him into the, maybe he'll be one of the top 3. No, he'll. But you're happy with the fact that he's a big dude, 6'3". I think you said I can't remember, 265 pounds, something like that.
Yeah,
253. I think is what it was. I like the size. I like the athleticism.
258. 6'3", 258.
Yeah, I like the size a lot. I think that's a perfect. I think that's what you want to see.
A little speedier as opposed to the big bull rusher like we got for Ty Robinson, the guy from Nebraska.
Correct. Yes, correct.
6'5", 288. So that's a big.
So, Dad, you hate giving draft grades. What's the draft grade? I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, it's funny. We were talking about that too. I watch everybody get the draft grades, and to me, it's just I don't know why they even do it. I guess so they can talk about something. One of those.
It's so they can write 7 articles.
To me, it doesn't really matter. It's especially the thing is when you're a team that needs 8 different players and you pick a player you already have, that's where you get a bad grade in the draft. Where what are you doing? We knew what we needed. Our offensive line's locked up. Our wide receivers, our running back, our quarterback, they're all locked up. We're only missing a piece or 2 on offense. We needed defense. The first 5 picks were defense. Yeah. They went to need. They went to certain kind of characteristics and traits as far as size, speed,
athleticism. Yeah,
I can't complain. I say we got an A+, but that's just me.
Let me list off some players and positions that we got on the undrafted free agents to note. Darius Cooper, wide receiver. Giles Jackson, wide receiver. Taylor Moore, wide receiver. Sorry, I should have said. Wow. Darius Cooper from Tarleton State. Giles Jackson from Washington. And Taylor Moore from Wake Forest. You walk away with Lance Dixon, linebacker from Toledo. Maxon Hook, safety from Toledo. Brandon Johnson, safety from Oregon. Montrell Johnson, running back from Florida. B.J. Mays, cornerback, Texas A&M. Holland Pierce, tackle from Rutgers. And then Shanderick Powell, running back out of Central Arkansas. So you're walking away there in the undrafted free agents with 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a corner, 2 safeties, and a tackle.
0 tight ends. So that might tell us something.
Big note, dude. It's huge.
I agree, man. And like we were saying off camera, I think, we got Jordan Davis, and you don't want to bust that lineup, and It's 2 more years, and it's guaranteed 2 years from now he's going to get the 13 or whatever million. But by then the cap's going to go up another 40 or 50 million. So who cares what it costs then?
Yeah.
So I think extending or taking the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis, and I think signing Goddard another year. I know the tight ends are getting the big money, $20 million a year. You got the guy in Arizona, and then of course Kittle in San Francisco got like 19.1. But you just kind of work it out. Maybe get Goddard for a year or two, guarantee maybe that first year. And don't worry about it. You don't want to break it up. If things fall apart, that's one thing. But when you win the Super Bowl, you don't want to break it up. Sure. Keep them in here. Maybe develop some. We did pick up a bunch of tight end guys from other teams, and low cost, no risk types. We got Calcaterra, who we know can catch, but we need a blocking tight end. Possibly make Johnny Wilson, the huge wide receiver we have, who can block, from what I hear. Make him not convert him, but use him as a tight end.
He doesn't want to convert. I think he talked about that last year.
There's big money in that. Yeah.
It's
you want to be on the team.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, it's difficult with Goddard because I don't think teams around the league really are going to want to. They don't want to trade for him, and they don't. Everyone's, like you kind of said, everyone's already spent their money. The draft has already happened.
So there's draft for this year or next year. So
there's nothing really. I just don't think Goddard has much value outside of Philadelphia. I don't think the league looks at him as a top tight end. I feel like there was a time where they did, but now they're kind of like, well, it's written in pencil. Sorry. It's written in pen that every season of his career he's going to miss games. It's just
not just that. We've sat here and said, "Oh, this is the year he gets 67 catches and 820 yards and 8 touchdowns." And if you look at his overall, and I'm not putting him down. I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. He did great in the playoffs. He's
always great.
He's a playoff warrior. I think he's 16 for 16 in playoff games, and so I mean, he's never missed a playoff game.
Yeah.
And this year, I mean, what do I have to say? You saw what he did against the Packers. You saw what he did in the Super Bowl. He opened up the passing game early with that great crosser along the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's got to bring him back, man. Financially, make everybody pay an extra $1 for parking or something. Just pay that.
And then to touch on Jordan Davis, like you mentioned, we picked up the 5th-year option for him. I think it's smart. A lot of people were kind of not too sure about it, iffy. I don't know. To me, Jordan Davis's play, it's funny. His play doesn't matter to me. The biggest thing about him is that's Jalen Carter's best friend. And as long as Jalen Carter's playing with his best friend, he's going to be great, and he's going to be happy, and he's going to want to be here. To keep that room solidified, to keep Carter happy, and to keep Davis happy, you keep them together. I mean, as long as you humanly possibly can. You have to.
I agree. And you saw the sack in the NFC Championship game when he came
the Super Bowl
on Jaden Daniels. I mean, this is the super fast guy that the rookie of the year. I mean, he busted through there and tackled him within 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So maybe get a little more of that out of him. Continue to work on his calisthenics or the strengthening, whatever you got to do. But I mean, he's got the speed. You just got to keep him in the game, and hopefully with some of these other guys coming in, it might push him a little harder. Possibly play a little more snaps, but he played like 45% of the snaps last year on defense.
Yeah.
That's good for a defensive lineman. That's 300 pounds.
Exactly.
Who can
330 pounds.
That pushes people away and can run a 4.6 or whatever. He runs some crazy 4.7.
He ran like an insane. I think it was one of the fastest. Yeah, one of the fastest 40 times for a guy.
You give me a sack in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl next year, and we'll pay your way.
Exactly.
And again, like you said, they picked up the 5th-year option, meaning he's playing
next year and the
4th year.
Yeah.
And then a year. So we have him for 2 more years.
Correct.
If by then he doesn't make it, okay, then we move on, right? I mean,
I don't know. I just cannot imagine you can
agree with you, man.
Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, you can't mess it up. There's a reason we've won a Super Bowl.
I agree.
It's just you can't.
The hardest part is to keep the desire and
with Carter, we love Carter, but we all know kind of knucklehead. Does some things here and there that you're not loving. But man, I just you can't. You got to keep his best friend there. You can't mess that up. You can't do it.
And now you brought another couple Georgia players in that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. To me, it's a no-brainer. I think. I don't know why there was any controversy on it. I would have done it already.
All right, man. You got anything else?
No, that was good. I like the fact that we got what we needed in the draft, and it was
Good draft.
Good to talk about it.
All right, well, let's say our goodbyes. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. If you like our Eagles Therapy podcast, do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Comment down below your questions, and you can also email us your questions at oureaglestherapy@gmail.com. But other than that, from all of us here at Our Eagles Therapy Podcast, I'm Basil.
And I'm Baz.
Go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.